Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on protecting industrial control systems, uniting ISA 62443 and privileged access management. I'm David Muniz, your host, and we're excited to share valuable insights that will be beneficial to professionals in the industrial cybersecurity sector. Today, I have here with me Andrea Ristaino. Hey, Andrea, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, Andrea is the Managing Director at the International Society of Automation, ISA, which provides guidance on ICS cybersecurity. This webinar is divided in two parts. So the first one, Andrea will introduce the ISA 62443 standard and dive into the specific aspects associated with sections 2-1 and 3-3, exploring why they are relevant in establishing robust security measures for industrial control systems. Then the second part of the webinar, I'll jump in and explore the vital role of privileged access management in addressing the requirements of ISO 62443. I will also bring a real customer case where senhasegura helps protecting privileged access in critical infrastructure. So without further ado, I'll hand over to you, Andrea, so we can get started. And one more time, thank you very much for being part of our webinar today. So I will stop sharing and then you can get started. There you go.
Okay. Okay. Are you able to see this screen properly?
Yes.
Thanks. So, like Dave said, I'm a Managing Director, International Society of Automation, oversee the conformance programs and Consortia. And we do a lot of collaboration around the world with various organizations, including NEMA, Open Process Automation Forum, FTT, OPC, others. I've been an invited expert with the ERNCIP and the EU on their ICS certification scheme, and I've held other positions prior to that. So ISA has been active in securing automation that affects our everyday lives ever since 2002. Number of programs that have been stood up, but the starting at the bottom, you can see the ISA 99 standard was started in 2002, and it's where the 62443 standards are drafted and approved, and they're published as ANSI standards and adopted by the IEC as IEC standards. We have an excellent education and training department. We've been training individuals for 45 years. Last year, we trained over 3,000 students in a variety of topics, including cybersecurity for automation and control systems. In 2007, we stood up the ISA Secure program, beginning with certifying automation and control systems to the ISA IEC 62443 series of standards. We've been certifying products and systems and the development since 2010. This year, we're doing a pivot and we're addressing doing assessments and certifications for systems deployed at asset owner operator sites. There's information about that on the ISA Secure website. I also oversee Logic, which does research and automation that's used in oil and gas industry. And I oversee the ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance, and we bridge the gap between the published 62443 standards, market adoption, and we seek to lead the cybersecurity culture transformation, much like safety. Out of ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance, we stood up something that we saw as a gap in the marketplace, incident command system for industrial control systems around the world, and particularly in the US. We have FEMA and CISA who respond to disasters like floods and fires. a well-articulated incident response system that's used whenever there's a disaster. However, it did not have the profiles and credentialing of incident commanders who could oversee an incident related to a cybersecurity attack on automation that manages critical infrastructure applications. So we've stood this up. We think it's something that should be included in any type of training. It's all voluntary, and it's been we've been doing exercises for the last 2 years now. So I mentioned the ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance, about 60 companies supporting this cultural transition and advocacy for the 62443 standard, including our host, senhasegura. So the standards themselves have been around since 2002. They continue to grow and expand, and they're subject to updates every 5 years. They're oriented towards operational technology or cyber physical systems. Typically, you see them addressed in the 16 critical infrastructure sectors in the US, but it doesn't include telecom or finance. So water, wastewater, power generation, oil and gas, pipelines, building automation are examples. The committee's been working since 2002. There's more than 500 normative requirements associated with the standards. That's all phases of control system life cycle. We've had over 1,000 volunteer members. Really, it's closer to 1,100 at this point. We have many formal and informal liaison relationships with other groups such as IEC, Open Process Automation Forum, NMOR, WIB, and others. So the 62443 series of standards are now designated as a technical horizontal by the IEC, and this means that any industry groups that are developing standards or standards development organizations, as they develop their functional standards to the topic areas of cybersecurity, they're directed to start ISA IEC 2443 series of standards to their foundation. Just as a side note, ISA IEC 62443 standards most reference standards in the United States NIST cybersecurity framework. So just kind of some side notes, naming convention of the series. The ANSI ISA versions and IEC versions of the standards contain identical technical content. The technical content is vetted in the ISA 99 committee, overseen by the International Society of Automation. It's submitted to ANSI as a North American ANSI standard, which is recognized globally, and also to the IEC to become an IEC standard as well. Today we call it ISA IEC 62443 to acknowledge the fact that the standards are the same, whether they have C or an ANSI designation, they're exactly the same. So here's some information in the slide deck to give you a quick start to some resources for the standards, other programs that wrap around it, a lot of free material, learning sections on the websites, etc. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you can follow the links and get a lot of great information, including information about the ISA Secure certification programs. Here are some additional links to the isasecure.org website, and have great information on securing products to the 63 standards and how to have your products and certified by globally recognized and accredited certification bodies. So the standards themselves, just a little tutorial on the standards. They're organized into 4 sections. There's a general section, the blue. So it has models, concepts, glossary, all the contextual information that you need to have a educated discussion about securing automation and control systems. Its second level down is policies and procedures, generally addressing what the asset owner operator needs to do and know for securing automation and control systems at their production sites or their buildings, whatever the use may be. So it includes things like overall program management, organizing a plan. It's very similar to ISO 27000. There are some work being done on secure protection ratings. There's requirements for service providers, a 2-4 standard, and some other information. The next level down is the brown level. That's information that addresses technical security requirements for systems. And so these systems, these requirements address off-the-shelf systems, and then where we're evaluating the systems at the production sites or asset owner operator sites, the 3-3 standard is also evaluated there. There's a risk assessment standard, a technical security requirement standard, and then there's security technologies for control systems, technical that's under development. Then down at the bottom tier, it's components. So there's a development life cycle requirements for product suppliers. They're the ones that develop the off-the-shelf components and systems. And there's the 4-2 standard that has the technical security requirements for control systems. And these are done. The 4-1 standard for development life cycle is a maturity rating. 1 through 4 is informative maturity rating, and the 6443 4-2 is a security rating. 1 through 4, it's 120 requirements in that. So again, there's roles that are defined in these standards, and the roles make it easier to use the standards. So there's a group of standards on the bottom left at the front end of the automation lifecycle that describes requirements for suppliers who design and manufacture the off-the-shelf control systems. There's standards that address service providers, so that's integrators and maintenance service providers, and that could be the asset owners for engineering, integrating the control commercial off-the-shelf systems into a site-specific solution or system. And then there's a series of standards that address the needs of asset owner operators for how to deploy, operate, and maintain the site-specific systems. And so this is the diagram. It comes out from the standards, and it gives a pretty good map for which of the standards are germane to roles. Level control system components, and that shows the 4 standards related to it. Then there's integration. There's the service providers, and there's 2 groups: the maintenance service provider and an integration service provider. The integrators are the ones who assemble the systems into solutions. And then at the top, there's the asset owners, and it has the different standards that address that role. So, the standards look complicated. There's 15 sections, but when you do a review of them, you realize you don't have to learn all of them, depending on who you are, and you can focus on the ones that are relevant to your role as a product supplier, service provider, and asset owner. And there's a category that's being discussed today, which is the cloud provider. That's a new role, and that is being addressed. And I think that's it for the overview of the standards, and I'll turn it back over to David. Thank you.
Oops. Thank you very much, Andrea. Let's start my video so I can move on to the next part. Thank you very much for your precious insight. And I will start sharing my screen so we can start the second part of the webinar. Now that we understand the role of ISA 62443, we are going to understand how privileged access management can help addressing privileged access risks in industrial control systems. Okay, so first I'll start with this provocation. Currently, the world has more than 300 billion passwords to protect today. And with the digital transformation, Industry 5.0, that ISA 62443 also protects, it's essential to protect passwords. And the trend is that this number will increase even further. And what are privileged credentials? What are credentials at first? So credentials can be privileged or common credentials, and the privileged credentials can be assigned to people, to users, or to machine and applications, which is also where some of our credentials are in the industrial control system world. So the machine applications can be the people credentials can be personal and share, domain admin for domain controllers, privileged users, and third parties. For machine and applications, we have service accounts, application accounts, and DevOps secrets. Almost half of data breaches occur through privileged credentials, and no wonder they are called the keys to the kingdom. When a malicious attacker have access to a privileged credentials, they can perform quite some damage in the organization. And what is the steps of our cyber attacks? First, the malicious attacker will compromise the credentials. That can be via social engineering attacks, through phishing attacks. For example, they can take these credentials, they can steal get these credentials from an initial access broker from the deep web. Whenever they compromise the credentials, they have access to the infrastructure, and more industrial control systems are connected to the internet. Whenever they have access to the infrastructure, they can move laterally, infecting and compromising other assets in the infrastructure. And voila, the damage is done. Data, they can steal data, or in the worst case, they can perform quite some damage in the organization. And what is PAM? PAM comes from Privileged Access Management. And this is the main purpose of PAM. It is a set of solutions that were developed to prevent cyber attacks carried out through privileged credentials. PAM also helps mitigating risks associated with threats coming from both outside and inside the organizations. Those are what we call insider threats. PAM also allows greater operation efficiency and also protects environments, including those with ICS assets. PAM also helps prevent data breaches, and in times of heavier compliance with these regulations, like ISA 62443 and data privacy regulation, GDPR, CCPA, NIST, all of those regulations require IT administrators to review credentials privileges and implement what we call the principle of the least privilege. Gartner also recognized the importance of implementing the adequate privilege access management, and they have chose PAM for 2 years in a row as the #1 project in information security. By implementing those privilege access management controls, it's possible for IT leaders and to cybersecurity leaders to address cybersecurity needs and reduce associated risks. Some of these risks include the lack of visibility of the assets connected to the infrastructure, understand where are those assets, and their respective credentials and privileges, the lack of management of privilege access, and the lack of traceability. Understand what the users have done into the environment, what were the actions that were carried out in the environment. And these risks are directly related. I usually say that it's impossible to track what is not managed, and it is impossible to manage what is not known. So if you don't understand where are your assets, what are the actions that are being carried out in your environment, it's impossible to ensure cybersecurity. According to Gartner, it's impossible to manage privileged access risks without specialized PAM tools. And it's not me who is saying that, that's a Gartner analyst. It's impossible to manage all the access that are performed in your infrastructure without specialized PAM tools. Privileged access management tools are needed to fully address PAM challenges from ISA 62443. However, there's some effort that is required into the people and also the process aspect. It's not just the tools, okay? And I usually say that's useless to implement the state-of-the-art in security tools without first investing in the weakest link in this chain, which are people. That includes training and cybersecurity awareness programs. Regulations, including ISA 62443, also include this aspect. And when you implement tools without addressing the people and the process aspect, it's useless. That means that you have still unmitigated security risks. And this is the design of a PAM solution. So through a PAM solution, you can either have direct access to the infrastructure, including Industry 4.0. You can use a password vault, or you can use a proxy session, a remote session where you can record and store everything that has been, all the videos of the actions performed in the environment. So what are the challenges associated with privileged access management in ICS? So the first one is third-party access management. Well, remote access is one of the biggest attack vectors for organizations. There are many third-party in industrial control systems. Many organizations are unaware of the access and privileges that are granted to third parties in their environments. And also we have different suppliers that use their own tools to access industrial control systems. What is our recommendation? Manage third-party access to industrial systems and technologies. So control everything that is being performed in the environment. Segregate user permission to ensure the principle of the least privilege. Standardize and ensure the use of a single secure means of accessing systems and devices, centralized access. Ensure a secure industrial remote access connection through specific tools. Another challenge, well, internal threats. And I think it's one of the greatest challenges because they have legitimate access, they have the credentials, they have the permissions, but still they are doing something malicious. So attacks caused by employees and third parties have a high cost for companies. However, industrial control systems sometimes are not ready for cybersecurity controls. Many of them are legacy. So many of them use generic privileged credentials to access their interface. So how I'm going to check who made specific actions into ICS assets? Then impersonal credentials that are shared between different team members, no traceability of the actions that are carried out. It's impossible to know what the users have done. How we can solve that? Well, monitor and control all the commands that are done by privileged users. Verify in real time all the actions that are performed in the environment. Have to implement traceability of the access that are carried out by generic privileged credentials. Ensure that you know who performed which actions using those generic credentials, block any suspicious actions, preventing potential malicious actions. So you have your cybersecurity team needs to understand when a malicious action is being carried out, so you can minimize the time to detect and respond to those cyber attacks carried out by privileged credentials. Knowledge management is, well, that's a lot. Some industrial organizations have complex infrastructure with solution from different suppliers, and that increases somehow the troubleshooting time for the technical team. Using the PAM solution, using the session recording capabilities from a PAM solution, it is possible to scale knowledge and train those responsible for maintaining industrial control systems through the recording and secure storage of video files of all remote actions that were carried out into the environment. So you can store the actions and create a database, a knowledge management portal or whatever to spread knowledge between your technical team. Compliance. Well, we understand that there is an increased regulatory pressure, not only from organizations like ISA creating new standards for cybersecurity in ICS, but we also have specific legislation. In the Middle East, there's the Saudi 2013 that brings quite some references in terms of legislation to ensure cybersecurity, including ICS. In North America as well, there's NIST, the cybersecurity framework. So how we are going to address this? Well, and many of those regulations demand that the organization has traceability of the access and segregate users. So use a complete management solution for your privileged users in the environments. Implement, understand what they are doing in your environment, and prevent, detect, and ensure compliance and correct non-compliance aspects in your environment. Now that you're implementing PAM in your ICS organization to protect your ICS assets, what do you get from there? Well, first of all, credential lifecycle management. You can manage the entire lifecycle of privileged credentials from the provisioning to the removal and verification of everything that has been carried out in the environment. Remote access protection. You can protect your remote access from your vendors. Reduce response time to incidents, and reports like the cost of a data breach report states that the shorter the time to detect and respond to cyber attacks, the lower their costs, their associated costs. And there's a direct association between the time and of detection and response and the cost of data breaches. Unified IT and OT securities. We understand that OT didn't develop cybersecurity controls as fast as IT. So we're trying to, and this is understandable because before most, if not, well, the industrial networks were isolated, so there were no needs of cybersecurity controls. Compliance with security policies, security standards, policies, and regulations. Reduction in the risks of compromising privileged credentials and business risks. And, well, there is an increased association of cybersecurity risks into security risks. Organizations are taking cybersecurity really serious, including industrial control systems who didn't have to take care of the cybersecurity aspects. We understand that ensuring cybersecurity of ICS is an important aspect for industrial control systems. And we are a supporting member of ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance. The International Society of Automation is a nonprofit professional association that was founded in 1945 to create a better world through automation. And ISA created the ISA Global Cybersecurity Alliance to advance cybersecurity readiness and awareness in manufacturing and critical infrastructure facilities and processes. And helps organizations to proactively address growing threats in the cybersecurity aspect. Now bringing a customer case to our webinar today. So in this, this is a customer case of a leader pharmaceutical company who implemented PAM. So they had production plants in several Latin American countries, and they had no visibility. They didn't know anything that was going on in the environment. They had remote access, and also they had to comply with specific regulation. When they implemented PAM, they were able to have full visibility of the access that were performed by third party. They increased their availability time to 99%. They were able to build a knowledge base for training maintenance staff, and they were also able to achieve compliance with specific industrial cybersecurity standards. Now, the key takeaways of our session today. Well, the digital transformation process is essential for survival of organizations. Industry 4.0 has been increasing levels of connectivity and convergence between OT and IT. New attack vectors have emerged, and increasing cybersecurity risks have also increased. Malicious attackers prefer privileged credentials to carry out cyber attacks. Almost half of cyber attacks are carried out through privileged credentials. As we saw, it's not us who is saying that, it's Gartner. PAM is essential for the full management of credentials and access to industrial device to ensure cybersecurity of ICS organizations. And with that, I finish my presentation. Let me stop sharing. I would like to thank you, Andrea, for your time during our webinars today, our session. Thank you very much for clarifying ISA 62443, and thank you for your contribution in our webinar today.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye, guys.